Bridge too far. Bridge too far. What's up? We're live. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. How are you? Tina, are you there?
I am here. I'm just logging into the video thing
Okay.
so I can see it.
All right. Yeah,
I'm here though.
you
I'm
look
physically here.
confused. All right, I'll let you finish with your login. Sorry, y'all. We were having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we're here. We made it. We have a lot of stuff going on today and a lot of not great stuff. We're going to start with Cop City. We're going to bring our guest in just a second. Then we're moving on to the Supreme Court pretty much is crushing our right to strike, more or less. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some stuff in the digital rights space. There's a new campaign that launched that packages all the bad internet bills. And also the Heritage Foundation is saying the quiet part out loud. We're going to get into all that. And we even have a little bit of breaking stuff that we'll get into as well, as far as Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. We got other stuff, but
We have Minnesota governor has now vetoed the Uber Lyft bill this morning too.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, we got a lot to get into, but let's start with Cop City. We have a guest who's going to be with us for a bit here. There was a raid this morning. Tina, what's going on?
Actually, I think it was was it yesterday or
was
this
it?
morning?
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday, I believe.
Okay,
So this is the bail fund. This would be a collective bail fund which people can donate money to that provides bail relief for the people that have been arrested. Also legal access. They can recommend attorneys for folks. The phone number was written on some of the arrestees in the last round that were being charged with that are being charged now as domestic terrorists. I think they're just up in the ante now. They're basically saying that they've committed some sort of money laundering crimes. It sounds like it's nonsense to me. I think they're once again just trying to quash political dissent. But we have Kay with us. Kay is one of the individuals I actually interviewed when I was down there in Atlanta a couple months back. So Kay's going to join us right now to talk about the bail fund and what's going on there with the next arrestees. And also, I will be returning to Atlanta at the end of the month for the Weolani Summer Week of Action. But welcome, Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So details here. This is now the bail fund that is more or less being criminalized. They sent, in fact, we have video of this if Colin wants to pull that up. They basically sent the SWAT team to the organizers' place and arrested them. This was yesterday, right?
That's correct. It was yesterday, early yesterday morning. A tactical team, SWAT team, showed up outside of a house in a neighborhood in East Atlanta and raided that house, went in and conducted what appears to be a search warrant, and then arrested 3 people who were at that home. And the bail fund that is being targeted, the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, is actually something that has existed long before the movement to stop Cop City. This has existed for 7 years. It formed in 2016 and has always had as its mission to bail out protesters who are targeted for any reason, as well as to work alongside lawyers to provide legal representation. Now, what we've seen in this movement is that the police, the GBI, and this 5-agency task force has continuously moved to associate this bail fund specifically with only this movement, and to even, like you mentioned, criminalize our ability to access that support by using as evidence in prior bond hearings of arrestees having that phone number for jail support on their arm, saying that was evidence that they were planning criminal conduct or something, right?
Which is crazy.
Of course, we know bail funds have a long history going back. And of course, bail funds were very popular during the civil rights movement because people had to be bailed out of jail. And they exist all over the country today.
Yes, they do. So it's basically a collective action that allows protesters, when they are jailed, to get support. This is something that has been utilized for decades now. You're correct. And part of, being in the protest is sometimes civil disobedience. So there is a need for this in the world. And also I would attach to that the belief that nobody should sit in jail because they simply cannot afford to post bail, right? That's another level here. Are we going to criminalize poverty? Rich people can post bail, no problem. Poor people can't always do that. It doesn't mean they're actually guilty of anything. So to me, this is one more attack on the First Amendment.
That's right. And another tactic that's been used by the state in this movement to repress the movement is bringing really exorbitant bail amounts. So some of these bail amounts are totaling over $100,000. Now, only the richest of the rich could ever afford that, right? So the bail fund in that sense has been important to protesters in the movement who would otherwise not be able to afford bail. And so we see this as strictly a political move. There was a former prosecutor who spoke at a press conference yesterday. And she said, as a former prosecutor, I'm here to say that this is at the most an IRS offense. But you've sent a SWAT team to go raid a house and arrest 3 individuals, right? So it's clearly a political attack,
Right.
not only on this movement, but we believe looking at this is setting a horrible precedent for bail funds, abortion funds,
Right.
mutual aid funds of all kind around the country, saying that they're trying to attack our very ability to provide care for each other, especially in this time where we have to provide care for each other. That's so important to so many people's survival.
How did they pick the 3 people?
Right.
How?
So IRS, they run the fund, I believe, right? Or what's the relationship?
If you look at the warrants state that each of the 3 individuals has a position in the 501c3 that sponsors the bail fund, right? So it's a nonprofit organization essentially. And so of course they then are legally connected to that nonprofit organization. And that's it.
No, and I think you're right about the IRS thing. This is not money laundering. If there was some mistake of transfer of money, my understanding is that they were given some money that they returned to somebody. Normally, if it was out of bounds, the IRS would have just sent them a letter and say, "Hey, next time do this, that, or the other." Or if there's something owed, this is what you owe us, right? This is hardly money laundering, and the fact that they're trying to turn it into that as a felony is absolutely outrageous. I do want to bring up another thing. I noticed at the top of these warrants, they had the same little blurb about the Department of Homeland Security saying that Defend the Atlanta Forest is a domestic terrorist group. We already know that that's not true. DHS spokespeople have said that that is not true. They are not in the business of putting any organization into a column that says they're domestic terrorists. That's not something they do. Why is the GBI still using that blurb?
It's a good question. I'm not fully clear at this point, but it appears that it may be that the Department of Homeland Security at some point in a document refers to Defend the Atlanta Forest protests as domestic violent extremist or whatnot, which is not a technical legal designation, but seems like more a shorthand that Homeland Security is using, and provides, of course, great opportunity for anyone who would like to use that terminology to use it and kind of mash up their words and use it against the movement. In any case, I myself am a member of an organization called the Weelaunee Coalition that's been a part of the movement for over a year. And what I know when I look around at the movement is that there are so many different kinds of people who are involved. This movement has brought out a broader base of support than any movement I've seen in this city in 15 years, right? And why is it that now it's being labeled violent extremist or people are being charged with domestic terrorism? It's because this movement threatens the foundations of white supremacy, the foundations of Southern colonialism, because it's calling for land back to the Muskogee people whose homelands these are, right? It's calling for not just better police training. We're arguing against police training. We're saying we don't believe that you're going to train them for what you're saying you're going to train them for. We know what you're going to do. And really, I should say, they're saying pretty explicitly that Cop City is being built to train police to suppress protests, right? So we're calling for the abolition of police, and people are enacting abolition through the movement. And this is an environmental justice movement against environmental racism. And it's when movements, I think, are specifically calling out and settler colonialism, calling out capitalism, calling out racism, that these are the movements that really threaten the class rule that we have in this country. And so it's threatening. And because of that, that's why we're facing that heavy repression. We're seeing those terms like violent extremist or domestic terrorist.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They're really just trying to outlaw the First Amendment in Georgia right now. And let me say this, it's not just Brian Kemp that's doing this. A lot of the Democrats in the state are on board with this. Most of the city council is on board with this, and the entire council is Democratic. So what do you say to the Democrats that are also supporting this like increase to fascism?
Yeah. I have some hopes that some of these council members will finally see the light and change their mind ahead of this vote that's coming up here on Monday to approve the funding for the project. But so far, it's been extremely, I won't say shocking to see how the Democrats in this city are behaving, but I will say disappointing, certainly, because so few of the city council members have taken a position against the facility at this point, even after the killing of a protester, even after these absurd overreach charges, right? And they at this point have fully aligned themselves. If you're not taking a stand against what's happening with the repression of the movement, then you're fully aligning yourself with Kemp's strategy. And we know that's true for our mayor, Andre Dickens, and we're seeing that from several city council members, unfortunately. But we still think it's not too late and are calling on Democrats at higher levels to speak out against what is happening here. Many of them have just remained silent because I think that they think that they can remain silent until the next election cycle and hope it all blows over. But of course, our movement is only growing. It grows every time the state comes to repress us.
Right, it's not going to blow over.
It's not going anywhere.
How confident are you?
It's definitely not going in there.
How confident are you that Cop City is going to happen or not?
I am not confident that Cop City is going to be built. In fact, I think quite the opposite. I think that people in the movement, both here in Atlanta and nationally and internationally, have been very clear that Cop City will never be built. And so while many people are focusing on this council meeting on Monday, where they have to approve the funding for the project, in my mind, no matter how that vote goes, it doesn't change anything. Because if they do not approve the funding, we will continue to fight until we know that Cop City is not being built and until that land is returned to community. Because that land now needs to be restored because they have been clear cutting trees, right? And if the vote doesn't go our way and they do vote to approve the funding, I believe that people will continue to fight against Cop City. I'm sure of that. Because we've seen that many of the routes that we're always told to take in this country, right? Go through the electoral routes, go through city council, have your protests, but make sure they're in a particular style that we like and we approve of, that we've done all of those things and we'll continue to do all of those things and that they're not listening, right? And so that's okay. We're going to keep fighting regardless of how that vote goes because we've kept fighting this whole time. We weren't deterred when they voted for the land lease in the fall of 2021. And we haven't been deterred when they've started over the last several months have essentially been trying to say, city council members, been trying to say that Cop City is a done deal. Now, we know that's not true. The funding was not actually even in place. And there's a lot of steps along the way that have to happen in order for Cop City to be built, including the actual construction itself, right? So I think people will keep on fighting that and won't accept Cop City being built because people know that this is about much more than just a few buildings in a forest near my house, right? This is about the militarization of police, and that militarization of police is increasing not just here in Atlanta, but all over the country and all over the world. This is about swapping tactics with international police forces and with police forces from other cities. And I don't know if folks have seen, but if you're living in New York City or Chicago right now, you may have seen Atlanta police recruitment flyers. APD is already recruiting to bring in people from other cities to come train to be police officers here. And so we know that those tactics will continue to be swapped, right? And that will happen through Cop City. And this is not the only Cop City. There are many facilities like this that have been proposed in other states. We had the Chicago No Cop Academy campaign, for instance. There was a similar facility in Hawaii, one in Texas that was squashed, thankfully. But this is their new approach. And I saw recently, Stuart Schrader and Alex Vitale, who are both scholars who study counterinsurgency and policing, in a conversation and bringing up, part of this is about the militarization from the legacy of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Right? And you have the surplus of military gear and there's somewhere you got to put it. And so they're trying to put it right here back home in US cities to suppress people who are standing against climate change. They're trying to prevent climate change, and they're standing against militarization of police and rampant racism in our societies. And they want to use that military gear now on us to stop us from standing up.
Kay, I want to ask you about the $30 million that is going to be voted on June 5th, which is coming up this Monday. That is the next city council meeting. I know that a lot of activists are going to be there. I want to ask you about this $30 million because now it's coming to light that that's probably not an accurate number. That is probably way more than the $30 million. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure can. It was talked about as $30 million for quite a while. And thankfully, a local press outlet, the Atlanta Community Press Collective, did their research, did an investigative report, and showed initially that, no, this would be $50+ million. And then after the local movement press did their report, our local paper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who should have done this work, in my opinion, way prior to this moment, right? But we happen to know that the person who owns that paper also is the head fundraiser for Cop City. But when they finally did their report, they said, no, in fact, it's going to be 60-something million dollars. So at this point, it's over 60 million. The price of the facility from the public fund has more than doubled. Right. So this was sold to council members as, oh, it's going to cost this $30 million. And then private corporations will take care of the other 60 million. Don't worry about it. But now, in fact, the public part has more than doubled. And part of that is because they will be getting $1 million a year from the city of Atlanta. Right. So on top of this initial $30 million investment, or 31.5, I think it is now, I'll additionally be getting that $1 million a year. So the residents of Atlanta will be paying for this facility in many ways for a very long time to come. Right. That $1 million payment will happen for 30 years.
It was. And Kay, wasn't that originally supposed to be like a $1 payment that they had negotiated, not the $1 million price tag? Wasn't there a lower number?
There's a $10 payment that is what the Atlanta Police Foundation is paying to the city of Atlanta to lease the land. So essentially a symbolic amount, right? They're getting the land for free from the city of Atlanta. In fact, the city of Atlanta is paying them, paying the Atlanta Police Foundation. Right? Yeah. And this is, right, one of the ironies is when we're talking about these 3 individuals being arrested yesterday for running the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, a bail fund, a mutual aid fund. They're being accused of money laundering and suspicious financial activity. I'm like, let's look at the Atlanta Police Foundation and their extremely suspicious financial activity. We know that there's private investors that are investing in the Atlanta Police Foundation through tax-free donations. And then the Atlanta Police Foundation turns around and pays those very same companies for equipment, for gear. And we saw this happen in Atlanta through Operation Shield, which is a program that made Atlanta the most surveilled city in the US. Some of the very same people who were donating to the Atlanta Police Foundation then were getting their equipment purchased by the Atlanta Police Foundation. So let's talk about a shady financial transaction going on. And there's repeated incidences of exactly that kind of relationship. And similarly, why is it that city council members themselves were not clear on the fact that this project was going to cost the city of Atlanta $60+ million, right? What is it the Atlanta Police Foundation has to hide here? We think a lot.
Yeah, indeed. Ron, do you have anything?
No, I asked all my questions. So thank you for everything you do.
Wow. All right. So I'm going to keep, we might actually live stream the June 5th meeting here on Status Coup possibly. But even if we don't, we're definitely going to keep our eyes on this. Let me ask you this one thing, Kate. So after June 5th, if the city council, against what political opinion is, clearly it's way beyond political opinion that this should not be built. But if they do decide to fund, the $60 million on Monday, do you think there could possibly be an escalation and protests between June 5th going into Weolani summer, the next week of activism, which is the last week of June? I think there's a possibility here for just an escalation of protests.
I think what I have already seen online is a call for a National Day of Action on June 8th. I think that there's reason to believe that this construction loan that's coming from a particular bank, and it appears to be Cadence Bank that would be giving this construction loan, should expect protests, of course, because people throughout the movement, throughout the country, have targeted whoever it is that's supporting this project. So I think they should expect protests or call-in campaigns, email campaigns. I think there will be a large push for people to, again, travel here from outside the city, or for the folks that do live in the area to stay here in that last week of June for that week of action. But like we said, at the beginning of this, I think people will absolutely be continuing to protest. This movement's already lasted 2 years, and I don't see it ending anytime soon, because the only way it ends is there is no Cop City and that land is back with the community. Until that happens, I think we should continue to expect to see escalations until it's over.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that the protests are not going to end. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
I was just going to say in closing, is there anywhere you'd like to direct people, like anywhere people can go to help out with the bail funds and stuff like that? And again, just want to reiterate, thanks for everything y'all are doing. You guys are really on the front lines of this. And it doesn't just affect Atlanta, it affects the whole country. So,
yeah, thank you. Well, for folks who are wanting to get involved wherever they are, I always recommend StopCopCitySolidarity.com. Is on this website, you can view a map and you can see where the various investors or construction companies might have offices in your town. And so you can see local targets that will help to put pressure to stop the project. The Atlanta Solidarity Fund still generally, Atlanta protest needs support, certainly. And right now, the National Bail Fund has taken up support for the Atlanta Bail Fund. So we're asking people to donate to the National Bail Fund for now. And you can find that online. I'm sorry, I don't have the link handy.
We dropped it in the chat, I think. We got the StopCopCitySolidarity.org, so it is in the chat, and it'll be in the notes, too. So.
Okay, and then I'll get you the link for the National Bail Fund as well, if it's not
perfect.
linked on that website.
Yeah, I've given to bail funds before in the past. I had no idea I was laundering money. I feel like a badass now. I had no idea that's what I was doing.
I mean, I've donated to a few charities. I guess I'm in great financial trouble, huh?
Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and for continuing to allow us to cover this story and helping us do it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for covering it.
Peace. Oh, wow. That is frightening. But, I take a little bit of solace in the fact that I ask the same question every time where it's like, well, where are you at as far as this thing going to happen? And everyone's been pretty confident it's not going to happen. So I do take some peace in that. Like that does kind of give me a little bit of like, okay, good. I'm just scared there's going to be a day where that's not the answer anymore. That's what I really hope doesn't happen. I think you're still off a little bit, by the way. The
audio?
Yeah, I think your face and your voice do not always
if
match.
Anybody knows what. Yeah,
we're reaching out to the ethers for
Microsoft. We are for help. It's this efficiency mode. It's being forced in this new Microsoft update. It doesn't want to be compatible with any of the software. If anybody knows how to turn it off, we cannot figure it out because it automatically turns back on again. And it's doing it in we tried several browsers now.
We're not together. We're not. That's why whenever I would ask a question, you would chime in and stuff. We're not. Yeah, you're out of sync. We're not in sync. The band or in sync. We're just not. But all right. So it got through.
It was working, I think, for a second.
It worked for a second, then it kind of fucked up again, and it's currently kind of weird.
Yeah.
And you could try refreshing your page again, Tina, if you want, real quick. See if that helps.
It refreshed, Tina. See what
I'll do that.
Tina, did you turn it off and turn it back on? Tina, are the dogs playing with the cables again? Tina, she's just like coming back and forth. All right, I'll hold it down until we figure that out. But either way, great interview with Kay. We got through it. Little bit of lull there that made it a little difficult. But yeah, that is. Please go to Stop Cop City Solidarity to learn more. And yeah, we will continue to cover this beat. That's stopcopcitysolidarity.org. We will continue to cover this beat. We're trying to send Tina back to Atlanta. So please go to statuscoup.com/join, where you're funding journalism. Okay, that's what you're funding. You're funding sending Status Lou on the ground in East Palestine, sending Tina to Atlanta, getting Tina an up-to-date web browser, all kinds of things. The list never ends. Are you back?
Very funny. I'm back and I heard that. Is it more in sync now?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Wait, do something.
I don't know what to do.
So.
I don't know what to say.
Are you... First of all, why are you not a Mac person? Is there a reason? Did Mac do something?
Yeah, they're too expensive.
Oh, come on. But they last forever.
Yes, they're too expensive. I have an Apple iPhone. No, they don't last longer than anything else does.
I
don't think it would matter though. It's a browser.
I don't know what you do to your laptops,
maybe it would, I guess.
but maybe. But I feel like for most, I mean, they last a long time. They're like the Ford Toughs of computers, and they're not that much.
They last the same amount of time as any other computer. They are a lot more. Anyway, let's just get through this, I guess. How bad is it off, Colin? How bad is it off?
It's not great.
Colin. Yeah, it's not great, but you
verdict's not great.
I'm not sure what you did before that brought it to sync and made it go off again, but
I didn't do anything. I think just that it's forcing it back into this efficiency mode, and
yeah, I gotta
turn it off and it goes right back into
look into that more. Yeah, unfortunately.
Does anybody in the chat know how to?
Is anyone in the chat part of the Geek Squad? We could use your help. Can you help Tina with whatever it is? All right, we'll see if maybe the internet gods. I'm not trying to be like condescending or anything. It's just I've forgotten to do it. Are you not on Wi-Fi? Because sometimes I forget to turn off the Wi-Fi. All right, you are hardwired. All right, I just want to make sure. Sometimes I forget to do it. It happens to all of us, and it would have been cool if that was the.
I don't think it would cause this though.
It could cause a delay. I think.
No.
If you're going,
Chris says take 2 reboots and call me in the morning. Hang on, take 2 reboots and call me in the morning. Chris says. So should I go do a second reboot?
I mean, I think he's being half facetious, but yeah, reboot couldn't hurt. I mean, it's almost like you're
either that or we just
you're like a ventriloquist without a puppet. Like your lips move but then like voices later and your lips might not be moving again. So I'm not even sure what's ahead of what. Some people are like pictures ahead of sound. I'm like, I don't even know at this point. But yeah, you could take 2 reboots and yeah, I mean, whatever you want to do.
All right, I'm going to do one. I'll do one more. Reinstall, really? Shit, that could take forever. Open device manager and look for the file.
Social emotional learning. Thank you for that. Out.
Yeah, appreciate that. Open device manager. Look. Okay, I will be back in like 3 minutes.
They're paying us.
I'll call you, Tina, real quick. Also.
Oh, Colin's got.
Okay.
Phone, yeah. Collins. All right. Well, they're doing that. I will hold this down by myself. Colin, if you can hear, I hope you can also do source material because I'm not logged in, so I can't do that. So can you put up, let's see here. Where do we want to start? Let's go to the Supreme Court. We all have a lot to say about the Supreme Court, because this is not cool. Colin, can you pull up the tweet that just says, it's the holy shit tweet that I shared from More Perfect Union? And then I can take it from there. Okay, here we go. Breaking. The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of a concrete company that wanted to sue a union because a strike costs them money. The 8-1 decision means the company, Glacier Northwest Inc., can sue the union over a strike where truck drivers left wet concrete in their trucks. Okay, so quick refresher here before we move forward on what's going on. And by the way, this is freaking terrifying. All right, but quick refresher. So a while ago, Glacier Northwest, the Teamsters at Glacier Northwest, they were working through the pandemic. They did not see a pay increase. They were working long hours. They were not getting treated right. And so they said, guess what? We're going on strike. They went on strike and they freaking shut down billions in development up in Seattle. It was freaking badass. And one of the spokesmen for the strike, I forget his name, but he had the most amazing beard I'd ever seen. You guys remember that when we watched that video on Status Coup? And all across the YouTube space, people were like, that dude's freaking beard. Holy shit. He had an amazing beard. So we covered that here on Status Coup. It was covered all over the place when it was going on. Now, what the Teamsters did was they left the cement trucks when the strike started, and they left the cement trucks running. Now, why would they do that? They left the trucks running, you say. Here's the real big kicker here, folks. That was actually a courtesy. By leaving the trucks running, it kept the cement mixing up so that it wasn't going to spoil. So all the company had to do was go and get the trucks. The cement was just sort of staying, good and mixing and whatnot. So they just had to get the trucks, bring the trucks back, and then everything would have been fine. And then it was up to them to make sure the cement stays okay, to do what they need to do with the cement. The company didn't do that. Instead, the company didn't do jack and tried to attack the Teamsters and say, oh, well, you guys cost us money. We should be able to sue you. Now, such a thing shouldn't even be heard by the Supreme Court. Such a thing should be dealt with via the labor board, but it didn't go that route. Instead, it went straight to the Supreme Court. Why? Because they knew that this Supreme Court would be anti-worker, and they wanted to get it to the Supreme Court because they knew the Supreme Court would go against the frickin' workers. And guess what the Supreme Court did by a number of 8-1? They went against the frickin' workers. Smash the like button, by the way. I'm working solo because Tina's browser is from 1995 or something. Smash the frickin' like button. Leave a super chat. Become a member if you can. Join Status Coup. So the Supreme Court, which, as some of you are pointing out, a completely illegitimate court. Over half of the Supreme Court was not even installed by a president who won the popular vote. I mean, half of the Supreme Court. I mean, Trump didn't win the popular vote. Bush was installed by the Supreme Court as president. So this Supreme Court not only doesn't even reflect public opinion at all, and these are lifetime appointments, but they have nothing to do with law and order anyway. They're just a freaking dogmatic political football. They use the law to just impose their ridiculous agenda, and now you see why the companies wanted this to happen. Tina, are you normal?
I think, yes, we rebooted. Okay. How does it seem now?
You seem like you're supposed to be.
Chris Garrett, you get brownie points because
Chris did it.
You did it with your whatever second read, whatever.
Yeah. We should invest in some walkie-talkies.
It's crazy why this happens. I swear tech is just never compatible. Every time there's an update, something goes awry. Every time. Anyway. Okay.
Well, so we're talking about the Supreme Court thing.
Okay.
I don't know how much you were catching what you were. So can you bring up the tweet again, Colin? This is from More Perfect Union, which someday we might get a collaboration. More Perfect Status or More Perfect Coup, which could have a negative connotation. I don't know if that, without the right context, that could be bad.
Yeah.
But so let me ask you this, Tina. I talked about so Glacier Northwest sued the Teamsters. That's what it was. Glacier Northwest, the company, they
Right.
sued the Teamsters. Now Glacier
in Washington
Northwest,
State, yeah. that's
Washington State, up in Seattle. I did a re-summary, Tina, of what happened. We covered it on the show when it was going on. The Teamsters left. I mean, the most infuriating freaking part of this, other than just the fact that the Supreme Court just basically crushed our right to strike, is that they left the trucks running as a courtesy. And the company could have just gotten the trucks. They chose not to. And now they're getting away with this. And what's really frightening here, are you okay? What's wrong? You look like someone's kidnapping your dog. What is going on where you're at? Like, what?
I'm just pulling up all my pages again.
You know,
It's very serious stuff here. I need all my pages.
I'm like looking over it. I'm like, Tina looks like somebody is like you're being held hostage. Just be a normal co-host, or we steal your car. Don't. Does Ron know something's going on if you blink twice? Oh crap, that's the cue. Tina's being held hostage by the YouTube police.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. Can you believe it was this ridiculous at an 8-to-1 ratio?
Yes and no. It is kind of disturbing that you had that ratio. I think Justice Brown made the point, and I think this is the right point, that the NLRB exists so that the Congress and SCOTUS doesn't intervene in labor disputes like they just did.
Right.
Her point was like, this is exactly what the NLRB is for. Why are we intervening in this? It seems incredibly inappropriate. In fact, I want to read. See, this is why I have to have all my tabs open. I want to read part of what she said. In my view, today's misguided foray underscores the wisdom of Congress's decision to create an agency that is uniquely positioned to evaluate the facts and apply the law in cases such as this one. This case is Exhibit A as to why the board.
Did Tina's audio just go out for everyone else?
Labor disputes of this nature. Are you serious?
Did that happen to everyone else?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it wasn't just me. I thought maybe it was like my head.
Are you saying my?
Yeah, your
is my audio not working?
In and out now. You were in the middle of her quote and it cut out, and I wasn't sure if it was just me, and so yeah.
Is it working now?
Yeah, but now you're off again. Now you're.
Are you serious?
This just in from Jordan Cheriton. Ron, you are getting a promotion. All right, Jordan. That's very nice of you. You didn't have to take on
Hang on. I'm going to refresh.
Not a real text. Not a real text. Didn't actually happen. Happy Pride Month, everybody, by the way. Tina's gonna refresh again. And I guess we'll just keep going. That's all we can. I mean, hey, it keeps things interesting, right? And let's just kind of keep going. Here's the thing. I think, and I was looking forward to getting my co-host's take on this as well, but but you'll just get mine, and I'll go to the chat. So I think that this has way more. This is way more than just, oh, they cost Northwest Glacier money. This has to do with, in this country right now, there is a labor uprising that we have not seen in at least 80 years, arguably about 100. All right. This is a labor uprising we have not seen in nearly a century. And because of that, they're looking around and they're going, how can we put a stop to this? I know, the Supreme Court. And now the Supreme Court just ruled that if you, quote, cost a company money when you go on strike, the company could sue you. Now they're saying that there has to be, quote, property damage. But guess what, folks? They're going to interpret that as broadly as they want to. Property damage could be, hey, we lost some memberships and we're Netflix or Amazon or whoever else. It could be interpreted however they want. And guess what? We live in an era where anyone can sue anyone for anything they want to. They're not guaranteed success. I could sue Tina for not having an up-to-date browser if I wanted to. I probably wouldn't win.
I have an updated browser. That's not the problem. It went back into efficiency mode again. I don't know why it keeps doing this.
Well, if it's called efficiency mode, why isn't it efficient?
I don't know.
That's my first question. Who determines efficiency by what metric? Certainly not for the metric of a live stream with another human being.
Is it working again, though?
Yeah, you're normal. Wait.
For now it is.
All right.
Now.
Okay. We'll
Wait
see.
for it.
We'll see if we can get a full story.
Let's see if we can get a full story. Okay, what part of that was missed, or do you get the point? Should I just move on?
I think we can move on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can move on. I think we covered it. So let's go to Minnesota
Well,
while you're still with us.
While I know, wait, hang on. I do want to mention one thing. SEIU had an interesting take. So this is SEI's response. This is the Service Workers Union. The decision by SCOTUS and Glacier Northwest doesn't change labor law and leaves the right to strike intact. The right to strike is key for working people. Why did this case land in front of SCOTUS? Greedy corps are trying to shut down our right to strike. They won't win. So technically they're correct. The right to strike has not been changed. It is intact. However, they're making it easier for the corporations to sue when and if somebody does strike. If they have any monetary damages, this opens the door for them to go after that. So I think the point here is like, yes, it's definitely left intact. However, people might consider going on strike now if they think that they might have to pay out some sort of monetary damages. What if the union doesn't have
this is huge.
a big enough bank account to, pay out something? So it's
exactly.
very bad.
I mean, it's like, yeah, by definition, it doesn't crush the right to strike, but being this susceptible to lawsuits, and look, this is going to be interpreted on behalf of the companies, quote, property damages. They're going to use that to apply to anything. I mean, I was saying, before you came back on, like, they're going to try to say like, we're a big, rich streaming service and there's a writer strike going on. We lost customers. That's property damage. I mean, they'll be able to try to make that case, and they may or may not be successful, but they'll try. They'll swing for the fences is my point. And they have all the power.
They'll definitely swing for the fences. This is just a really severe blow to labor, I think. And it's really shocking that there was only one SCOTUS. Where were the other supposed, liberal justices on this?
Yeah, it's a freaking joke. The whole thing needs to just go away. Just get rid of it. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. You know what is necessary? Smashing the freaking like button. Smash it. Smash. This is a smash the like button kind of day. All right. Tina, let's go to Minnesota before
let's go to Minnesota.
Explodes.
Right.
We really need you for that one. So before your computer.
All right. So Minnesota, I want to go to Minnesota because, Governor Tim Walz, progressive, was elected, but, he's done some good things, passing some good laws, but now he is caving to pressure in two different instances this past week I want to bring up. So the first one is the Uber Lyft driver pay bill. This is a bill that would have mainly given minimum wage guarantees to Uber and Lyft drivers. So basically, Uber threatened to leave the state except for the premium service if the governor signed this into law. So he vetoed it. So he caved to this pressure, and which sucks, really. I mean, what else can you say? But I do want to pull up the ABC News article so we can get into some of these details. St. Paul, Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz on Thursday vetoed a bill that would have mandated higher pay and job security for Lyft and Uber drivers in Minnesota, saying the legislation wasn't ready to become law. Let me read this quote, and then I'm going to get into why this is problematic. Rideshare drivers deserve fair wages and safe working conditions, Walz said in a statement announcing his first veto ever in his 5+ years as governor. I am committed to...
Dick.
Wait, it gets better. I am committed to finding solutions that balance the interests of all parties, including drivers and riders. This is not the right bill to achieve these goals. Okay, so stop right there. He's now basically made the decision that they're going to set up a committee to look at the issue and then propose new legislation in 2024. This just is unbelievable because this is what the Democratic Party keeps doing, right? They have a controversial bill. Right. They have a controversial bill that would really help, workers' rights or whatever else, healthcare, for example, single payer healthcare, all of these things. And what do they do instead? They say, well, let's form a committee and let's discuss it and see if we can come up with something better. This is what they do every time to actually avert making a tough decision. What Governor Tim Walz should have done is sign this bill into law. And if Uber wants to make good on this threat of leaving, except for a premium, whatever, let them.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, are you going to keep letting them extract wealth from the drivers? These drivers can't afford to pay for rent at this point. How bad does it have to get? So this is just one more example of a corporation threatening something and, the politician going like, oh, I'm scared. What if they make good on that threat and then people blame me for doing it? Or what if, they do these, sort of calculuses in their brains when really they should just take a strong stand and say, this is the right thing to do. Let's do it. I mentioned CalCare a second ago. That is the single payer bill that is going to be coming up again in California. Last time it was up, it didn't go.
Stab it in the back this time.
Well, they
take turns.
I'll tell you who. Michael Leidy, who has been a big advocate for single payer, is now basically saying he's arguing against the side of the California Nurses Association, against the nurses, basically saying, let's form a committee and let's analyze the situation, get a study going and figure out what to do next. We don't need to do that. We do not need to know what to do next. We already know we need universal health care. What we're doing now is incredibly inefficient. People cannot afford their insurance premiums. And if they have insurance and they pay the premium, they cannot afford to go to the doctor because their deductibles are too high, their copays are too high, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very broken system. Nobody's happy with it. The only people benefiting from it is the health insurance executives. It needs to be scrapped. I don't think that's even a controversial opinion at this point. So the fact that you have Democrats out there basically saying, I don't know, let's do a study, is just nonsense. And it's making voters even angrier.
Yeah. I mean, but it's here in California, and I want to get back to Minnesota here because that's right. Like, I don't want to muddy the waters too much, but our single payer bill, there is always a single payer slayer every time it's brought up. And whoever it is, whether it's, the last person was Ash Kalra, who has done some good things since, but it's kind of like, you got to be worried. Like, are they going to do the same thing again? He's been working with the nurses since then, which is really good to see. But it's kind of like, dude, can we trust y'all again? Like, Ash did it, Rendon did it, and none of these people pay a political consequence when they do it.
So I think the case with Ash is a little bit different. I wouldn't call him a slayer. I think he chickened out and knew he didn't have the votes and decided not to bring the bill to the floor. Personally, I think he should have brought the bill to the floor. Let the voters see who's not backing this really popular bill. And
he shielded his colleagues and turned his back on the people. Yes. And he knew that he did it. I'm not saying like, it's irredeemable. Again, and that's why I'm saying, hey, he's done good stuff in the past and he's been doing good stuff since. So, I really, and the nurses seem to trust him now. So
yeah, I saw both of them at KDAM. And in fact, I
wanted to talk to him. I didn't get a chance to, because I wanted to be like, hey, last time we crossed paths, you really pissed me off. But you've been doing some better things since, and I hope. But my point is, I don't want to like spend too much time on any one person. My point is, somebody always does it, and no one ever pays a political price. And so it's like you can't help but be pretty worried that like it's just going to keep happening. It's been going on for 10 freaking years now. And it's like, well, how is it ever going to change if nobody ever pays a political price for just being the bad guy for a session? Yeah, that I can't help it. After 10 years, how can you not feel that way at this point?
Well, because there's so many so many bad politicians. I don't know. I just think politicians are just, that's what they do.
Well, so let's stay in Minnesota, though. I feel like
Let's
we
stay in
kind of
Minnesota.
deviated
So
a little too much.
More Perfect Union had a great tweet on this. It said, breaking, Uber has threatened to end service across Minnesota, except premium products in Minneapolis and St. Paul if Governor Tim Walz signs a recently passed bill giving rideshare drivers a minimum wage. The Minnesota legislature is passing historic bills from the gig driver minimum wage to legalizing cannabis for to sick days for all workers. But first, the Mayo Clinic threatened the state. Now Uber is too. Governor Tim Walz can't cave to corporate intimidation. So let's go to the Mayo Clinic thing, because that's part of the story too. So Mayo Clinic also threatened to, let's pull this nurse staffing bill. So there was a nurse staffing bill, and the Mayo Clinic wanted it gutted because they didn't want to pay the higher wages as well. So nurse staffing bill is gutted in final hours of Minnesota's legislative session. A nurse staffing bill that passed the House and the Senate just weeks ago was gutted in the final hours of the 2023 legislative session when some senators withdrew their support because of an exemption for Mayo Clinic. Governor Tim Walz pressured legislators to carve out, this is what we've seen, like carve outs for certain corporations, right? To carve out Mayo Clinic after the hospital threatened to move billions in future investments out of the state if the bill passed. In last-minute negotiations, the bill's authors were forced to cut out the heart of the bill, a mandate that hospitals create staffing committees made up equally of direct care workers and hospital administrators with the power to set minimum nurse staffing levels. And this is a big deal in the nurse world because they've cut back on staffing levels to the point where nurses cannot effectively do their jobs anymore. It's causing a lot of stress. It's causing less patient care, and in some instances bad patient cares with bad outcomes. So it's important that the nurse staffing levels maintain a certain number in order for everybody to do their job well. So big deal there. So we came here to pass the Keeping Nurses at the Bedside Act because of the power and influence of corporate healthcare executives. That bill has died, said Mary Turner, president of the Minnesota Nurses Association and an intensive care nurse. State lawmakers moved pieces of the legislation in a bill named the Nurse Patient Safety Act that includes student loan forgiveness for hospital nurses, new reporting requirements on workplace violence, and funding for a study through the Department of Health to analyze why nurses are leaving the bedside. I think we know why.
Yeah, no shit. Well, I mean, what both these stories have in common is it just really shows you who really runs this freaking country. Like, oh, we're going to pool all of our resources if you don't let us exploit nurses. Oh, we're not going to have Uber in Minnesota anymore. Okay, we'll give you what you want. We'll give you what you want. And, Uber and Lyft in particular, I mean, they have been testing the waters, and they started out, the first test was the bill we had here in California.
Prop 22.
And we failed the test. We failed on Prop 22. By the way, in the UK, they didn't fall for it. We fell for it here in California. Well, I mean, me and Tina voted the right way, but California as a state, I'm assuming you did. I know.
Oh, I 100% did. I was
did.
appalled by how many people decided that Prop 22 made sense. I'm like,
they had so much propaganda. They were scaring the shit out of people. I was disappointed, but I wasn't shocked because they were scaring the shit out of people that their job was going to go away.
Right.
And and so they tricked California into voting against their own interests. They made it seem like, oh, don't you have a friend who drives Uber? You're screwing them over. If you no, you're screwing them over. Lyft and Uber are screwing them over.
Shoot, the drivers had to see ads from them every time they logged into the app. So when you logged into the app, there would be about California Prop 22 and why it was good for them. I mean, that should not be the case. That they are allowed to push their own propaganda to their workers straight on the app. No, it's very bad. Like all of these companies spend a lot of money. Yeah, they spend a lot of money doing this, even though they come into the state and they spend $30 million to get this bill passed. That $30 million is just really a big investment for them.
Yeah. Well, and look at where they're seeing all their success politically. They're not seeing it in bright red states. They're seeing it in California, New York, where they were trying to crush the drivers.
Big economies. Yeah, big economies.
They
need us.
Well, and not just big economies, but in the supposedly blue areas, in the supposed progressive areas. I mean, Minnesota, California, New York. These are supposedly some of the more progressive places in the country. There are no actual progressive places in the United States, at least not the way I see it. But, these are the quote blue states. Lyft and Uber's getting away with everything they want there. They're getting away with everything they want everywhere else too. But they're really testing the waters to see what they can get away with. And I think they're just starting, because they're seeing what they can do. And they're seeing that they have lawmakers by the gullet. They got judges by the gullet, and they can manipulate voters. They are probably feeling really freaking good right now.
Yeah, it's not good. These are some very large blows to labor. I think that a lot of this is also very much reactionary to the increase and awakening of labor unions in the country, right? They've been asleep for a long time. And in the last year and a half, we've seen a massive increase in workers' rights and workers going on strike, workers demanding more from their employers. And so, again, like when all of that happens, you're going to get a reactionary side from the corporate that they're like, we got to do something about this. We better quelch this. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem. So I think that's part of it. Also, I wanted to bring up Kroger is something that we've talked about on the show, Ron, several times. Kroger had given out bonuses this last quarter to their employees. And now, wait for it, they're asking for the employees to give back some of this money because they said they overpaid the bonuses. Can you believe this?
Yeah. Well, and I know there was that one particular case where they actually asked an employee for more money than what she was given.
Right.
In a bonus.
Yeah, because they screwed up on their math. Oopsie. Wait, we didn't give you that
psychotic.
much? Oopsie. Yeah, it's very psychotic. Listen, if you screwed up on giving some really small bonuses to these workers, let it go. Can we talk about the golden parachutes that you give to your failed executives all the time? Millions of dollars? I mean, come on now.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And so one other quick breaking thing, and then we're going to go to a quick digital rights thing in the chat. The Senate also did a vote to repeal Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. This hit about an hour ago. What they are doing is first of all, the good news is this is not likely to go anywhere. Even the White House said they would veto this. So hopefully it doesn't go anywhere. But not only did they say that they're going to nix this plan, which, by the way, is being decided in the Supreme Court anyway, and the Supreme Court's probably going to nix it. But in this particular policy, it could potentially get even worse, because not only does this nix it, but this would also have back interest. So all the interest that was put on pause, that interest would be re-added. So everyone would see their totals go up. This is just pure evil. And this is and this is likely just a political move. How sad is it that this is seen as a good political move in the United States? How barbaric of a country are we that is like, oh yeah, that move to just add interest back to people's predatory loans. That's a good move. People are happy about that.
This is crazy. Jeez. The resolution would appeal the administration's program to cancel up to $10,000 in loans for borrowers whose income falls below certain levels, and up to $20,000 for those who received Pell Grants. This is, it's infuriating me. It is crumbs. We're talking about crumbs here in the big picture. Yet anytime one of the large banks has an issue, they have no problem just signing a blank check. Where are their priorities for this? It just doesn't make sense. Also,
I think you answered your own question. The priorities are it's unbelievable. I mean, the whole pandemic was just this obscene upward transfer of wealth. It's just, and it keeps getting worse. We have not hit the bottom yet. I mean, that's the theme every freaking week on this show. We haven't hit the bottom yet. I don't know where the bottom is, but things are definitely, things could keep getting worse. And things are in a place where it's like they're likely to get worse. You see how corporations are making it clear they run this freaking place, and they have no problem turning our entire country into just one giant dog-eat-dog gig economy, and people can't do much about it. Your right to strike is being completely crushed.
And part of the problem with the I want to say this too, Ron. Part of the gig economy, bigger picture thing that doesn't get discussed a lot is when you are forced into, and I'm saying forced because a lot of these workers are forced into a gig economy. It's not by their choice. When you're
Oh,
forced
of
into
course,
that,
it's not the worker's fault. Yeah,
no,
I wasn't implying that at all.
No, I know you weren't. I'm saying, but yeah, I'm saying in case people think that's the case. The other problem that doesn't really get discussed is now that they're in this gig economy, there's no money getting paid into their Social Security, right?
Yeah.
Which is going to affect them when they retire. When they go to retire, there's going to be very little money for them to collect because they weren't employed by somebody that was actually paying for on their behalf into the system. So it's not just about, the 1099 or getting out of, health, providing healthcare, whatever else. It's all of these other fringe benefits that get kind of axed along the way too. Big savings for the companies, but makes the workers even worse off than you can possibly imagine.
So we're going to go to one more quick thing here, then we'll go
Yeah.
to the chat. And also, some of you mentioned, what am I drinking? I will open it up to the chat for guesses. If you want to leave a super chat, that'd be great. We're going to get to all the super chats. If you want to guess what I'm drinking, if anybody gets it right, we'll figure out some kind of prize. You will get Tina's laptop that doesn't update properly. That's your prize.
Wait, that's not my laptop. It's my desktop.
Whatever it is. You get Tina's whatever causes the delay. You get that.
Back away from
it to you.
Hey man,
all right.
it's not just my problem. There's a whole Reddit page I found dedicated to it. So apparently,
does the Reddit page not load properly? Because that'd be
no. People having the same problem with this efficiency mode, whatever this.
That'd be the most. You win efficiency mode. Guess what I'm drinking, and you win efficiency mode.
Chocolate milk.
Just the whole. It's
Travis
very
says
efficient.
It's chocolate milk. Is it chocolate
Keep
milk?
guessing. Well, it's open for guesses, and if you'd like to leave a super chat for your guess, that is very much appreciated. But we'll get to some of the guesses. All right. So, one of the things that I like to do a lot is I talk a lot about digital rights issues on this show. We cover a lot of the digital rights bills. There are a lot of call to actions, and a lot of these bills have a common theme where, okay, they make it out like they're for something good, like keeping kids safe online or protecting our privacy or something like that, or protecting kids' privacy. But it never actually does that. What it does instead is it blows a hole in encryption protection, which makes us all more vulnerable online. It allows a bunch of dogmatic bureaucrats to decide what kids can and can't see online, which would be horrible for LGBTQ youth and everyone else.
Probably.
So it does the total opposite of what it says. And here's an instance of the Heritage Foundation, which is a huge right-wing corrupt organization with the quote think tank. What are they thinking about? Nothing good. But
nothing good.
The Heritage Foundation. Here's an example where the Heritage Foundation says the quiet part out loud. Colin, can you pull up that tweet? So this is them in response to the Heritage Foundation openly states that they'll use bills purporting to protect kids to instead attack trans content, saying it's posing a risk of social contagion. This is super concerning, especially given that the bills have bipartisan support. We need to speak up. The Heritage Foundation is just saying it out loud now. Yes, we do. Keeping trans content away from children is protecting kids. No child should be conditioned to think that permanently damaging their healthy bodies to try to become something they can never be is even remotely a good idea.
My God.
So this is the Heritage Foundation. By trans content, they mean information for transgender youth, resources and information
support
to help
groups.
them.
Yeah.
Support groups,
it just
counseling,
infuriates
whatever
me.
else. I just want to say, this is the Heritage Foundation saying they do not believe transgender people deserve to exist.
That's right. That's what I was
the level of
say.
evil.
It is, because they're trying to frame it of harming their bodies, becoming something they can never be. Listen, they are who they are. It is you, Heritage Foundation, that is not accepting who they are. I was at one of these school board meetings a couple weeks ago, and there was some very far right Christian nationalists there, and that's
comforting.
They're
going to school board meetings now. Good, great.
I had a moment, Ron, where I thought I could have an actual logical conversation, reasoned conversation with this individual, and then it just that didn't happen. But she was basically saying that people are conditioned to be gay; they're not born gay, and I'm like, that's absolutely not true. they're born who they are. They feel the way they feel for certain reasons. We know what they are biologically if you just weren't looking only at your religious beliefs. And then I asked her point blank, I said, so what do you think we should do with intersex children? Throw them in the pit of hell? Is that what you think we should do? And she
Did she say, yeah, of course, that's what
well,
I
no,
think.
she
I'm a
was
psycho.
she had a baffled look on her face, and she looked at her husband, and I'm like, I said, do you not know what that means? And she's like, there's no such thing. I'm like, there absolutely is. There are children born into this world that have various degrees of both sex organs. Do you think they belong because of the way they were born in a pit of hell? I mean, by your argument, you're basically saying God doesn't create anything terrible. You said that to me 10 minutes ago, that girls are created as girls and they shouldn't become boys. Well, what if God creates somebody that's both because you think it's binary? I mean, this woman, like, she's steam coming out of her brain. But my point is that these folks come from a certain point of view, a certain perspective that isn't really congruent with reality. And the reason they don't accept these things is because they're conditioned to believe that, well, it's either this or that, and everything else is evil or wrong or demonic or, whatever. So it's really, it's frustrating because you can't have a reasoned conversation or convince them of anything.
Well, no, and especially because a lot of them are coming from a place where they're just, again, and we've talked about this so much on this show, and especially with it being Pride Month in June, like all of their fears, like it's just not real.
It's not
They
real.
don't understand what they don't understand the first thing about gender affirming care. They don't understand. They think it's a child walks into a counselor's office and they're getting a sex change 20 minutes later. That's not what it is.
Right.
That's not what happens. Like there's never been a litter box in a classroom. That didn't happen. That's never it's like that. That's not what it is. And it's so painfully ignorant.
It's painfully ignorant. And it's so full of hatred based on their painful ignorance. And it's very destructive right now. And the fact that you have these folks like completely accepting absolute Nazis into their midst, right? Like, oh, that guy's wearing a swastika shirt and doing Sig Heils, but he's anti-trans, so I'm okay with that. That is really frightening that this is happening, and it is happening. And I do want to point out that Nazi Germany, one of the first group that they came for were trans individuals, just in case people didn't know that.
Sex Research Center.
That's right. So
that was the first thing.
We've been here before. This is we're in dangerous grounds. Yes, today is June 1st. It is the beginning of Pride Month. We have Pride events coming up all throughout the month here in Los Angeles and across the country. And I am deeply concerned. I would be lying if I said I wasn't. I am deeply concerned that something might happen somewhere, something deadly.
So in this, on this theme of just the whole, like these are anti-LGBTQ bills. These are human rights issues. Digital rights are human rights. There's a new call to action that kind of compiles them all and gives a summary of each one, which I'm really excited about. This, of course, was launched by Fight for the Future, who, full disclaimer, I collaborate with, and it's called badinternetbills.com. Can you pull it up real quick, Colin? So you can check it out, badinternetbills.com. They make it easy for you. And there's a summary. I'll do a short video on it in the future to dive into it a little more. But for now, I just want to plug it. Please go. Please sign. And it just sums up everything from COSA to the Restrict Act. It just kind of gives your dystopian hellscape digital bills a nice home. And you can read about all of them. Collect the set, folks. Collect the set. But please go to badinternetbills.com. Check that out. Sign the petition. And come check me out on the road, folks. This month, I'm going to be on the road some. June 16th, Madison, Wisconsin. June 17th, Minneapolis. June 23rd, Detroit. June 28th, Bloomington, Indiana. That's a show with the Funny Times paper, which carries my comic, Lucy and Ron. June 29th, Chicago. Edinburgh, I'll be at the Fringe Festival, August 16th through 27th. And San Pedro, California, October 21st. Tickets and all information at ronplacone.com. We've had Status Coup crew at every show this year. Don't let me down. Madison, Midwest, Minneapolis, Chicago. Don't let me down. Bloomington, Detroit. Want to see some Status Coup crew there. All right, let's go to the chat.
Let's go to the chat. I'm just glad my internet's working still, or my audio is working still.
That is nice. We've got it most so far. Cross our fingers. We get to the finish line here. But we'll go to the super chat for it. And of course, feel free to guess what I'm drinking. The winner will figure out a prize. I'm sick, but I love you all. Happy Pride Month. Thank you so much for that, Tony. Do we got Tony's chat? Tony
Feel
saying,
better,
I'm
Tony.
sick. There we go. I'm sick, but I love you all. Happy Pride Month. Thank you so much for that, Tony. Please feel better. Well wishes. Can't wait to see you in Chicago, by the way, buddy. Social emotional learning with Donnie. Dr. Donnie. Dr. Donnie, also a tech guru here. Open device manager and look for the file. That is very kind of you, social emotional learning. You gave us tech advice and you paid us for it,
Yeah,
which is
hang
very
on.
nice.
I'm going to try that too, because I think it's going to revert back to the same thing. Open device. Okay.
Well, I think if we're okay, you don't have to mess with anything.
Well, for now we're okay, but I'm telling you, it keeps reverting back to this thing.
Well, the show's almost over.
Oh, no, I know,
Right?
but for going forward, for tomorrow.
Oh,
for
okay.
next
You're gonna.
week,
You're, I got
we need
you.
to find out what the absolute problem is and make sure it's not. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. I was just like, don't try anything crazy.
Right.
We're almost there. All right. Don't.
No, not.
I don't
right
want.
now.
It's like, well, the show's almost over, and Tina just turned into a cartoon character somehow. But she's playing a bike horn and nothing else. I don't know what setting this is. I don't know how we fix this. Tony D, what's up? Build a wall around Tim Walz. I don't think I know what that is. Do you know
Tim
what
Walz
that
is the governor.
Oh, yes, the governor of Minnesota.
He's doing a little. He's doing a little funny there.
Yeah, I like it. Is that how it's spelled?
Has no balls.
Oh, I see. Is that how it's actually spelled?
I can play that game. Yeah, WAL. Yeah, that is, isn't it?
I didn't realize that was how you spelled it. Okay, cool. I like it. Yeah.
No, only one L. No.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
WALZ,
All right. I wasn't sure if it was okay. Gotcha.
Still, that's good. That's a good one.
Still love it. No, it's great. I love it. That's awesome, Tony. Yeah, I just didn't. I don't know much about him other than this very, gutless thing he's doing. I don't know much about his history other than that.
He hasn't been terrible generally.
Yeah. I know the mayor of Minneapolis has stepped in it on more than one occasion because he was the guy where it's like he, did a nice little show up to like the Black Lives Matter events and everyone was cheering for him. And then they're like, are you going to commit to defunding the police? And he was like, no. And then he got booed a bunch. He got really uncomfortable and he was like, ah! And then he got like booed away. And I think he's done some not so great stuff since. But anyway. Chris, what's up, buddy? How are you, Chris? Thank you again for your tech-savvy help. Let's get Tina back to cover Cop City on the ground. There is much more learned when journalists are actually on the ground going full-on fascist. Those are two different sentences, by the way, folks. I know I didn't say... I didn't read it great there, but it was... there is so much more to learn when journalists are on the ground, period, going full-on fascist. Chris was not suggesting that journalists should be fascist on the ground. That was not what he was going for there. I read it as a run on.
Yeah.
But
so
we
Chris,
know what you meant, Chris.
We're definitely going back. I'll be there the last week of June. I believe Colin is coming with me. I believe.
Neither of them will be full on fascist though.
No
fascistic behavior from either one.
No fascistic behavior. I might have to write my attorney's phone number on my arm, so in case I get grabbed by one of the police officers, they can tell me I'm breaking the law by doing that.
Yeah, that is fraud. You're laundering something.
It's crazy.
That's so great.
It's so crazy.
Bell funds. That's fraud. They're just like, I'm like, wow, I've committed fraud a bunch of times. I've given money to Bell funds all the time. Like that's one of the usually I don't give money.
Illegal. There's nothing illegal.
I give money to mutual aid and I give money to Bell funds. That's where when I have money to give, that's where it goes because I know exactly what it's doing. I know exactly what it's for. Anyway.
Absolutely outrageous that I swear every time I turn around, the Atlanta Police Department or the GBI is upping the ante here. It's just crazy to me. It's like, when are they going to stop?
I feel you.
And what they don't seem to understand is there's cause and effect, right? So now there's going to be more reactionary protest to what they're doing. They're just making matters far worse. If they would just stop for a second, and if the city council would listen to what their constituents are saying.
Yeah, dare to dream.
I mean, this is, it's like you guys want to do something that's not fully supported by the public. You're not giving them lawful outlets to voice their opinion. When they do, you're ignoring it. where does that anger get channeled to, right? It's just so stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now we've got the GBI doing what they're doing. I mean, you can't just go. All of these cases are eventually going to get into a court, and I doubt that they will make it out of their probable cause hearings because they can't support these cases. These are everything that is happening here that these folks are facing isn't domestic terrorism. It's First Amendment protected free speech. It really is. Like marching with a banner at a protest, that is not illegal. That is protected First Amendment free speech. You cannot say that's domestic terrorism. You can't.
Yeah, they're trying.
I think they're just, they're trying because in their minds, I believe they know that that's the case, that what I'm saying is correct. But I think in the meantime, they believe they can quash the political dissent, that they can scare people enough that they stay home. But they are really misreading the room. The room is basically saying, no, you're just making me more angry. Now I'm going to come and I'm going to bring 10 friends with me. It was just me before. So
that's what you hope for. That's what you hope for. Despush Fleisch, what's up, buddy? How are you? Germany donated Nazis to the U.S. during Operation Paperclip. I prefer to give some bucks to Status Coup. Good call there. That is a damn good call. Appreciate you helping out Status Coup and helping fund on the ground journalism. So again, Tony, thank you so much, buddy. Hope you feel better. Social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie. Thank you so much. Chris, Despush Fleisch, thank you all so much. Again, if you are able, statuscoup.com/join, help fund on the ground journalism. Tina's going back to Atlanta. Status Lou's been on the beat in East Palestine and elsewhere. Journalism takes resources, folks. So if you are able to, statuscoup.com/join, ronplacone.com for all my show dates and tickets, and Right Wing Insanity Report tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow, Right Wing Insanity Report. So we are doing live call-in. Hopefully we'll figure out how to make that work better than the last time. For some reason, we had some echoes on the calls, not on my line, but we're going to troubleshoot that after I get off this now. So make sure you come back tomorrow with your questions for Right Wing Insanity Report. We'll be doing it live, and I will be having you, the audience, as my guest.
Happy Pride Month, y'all. See you next time.